Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is the Daily Medicine Transmission for Thursday, April 29th, 2021. And as the month of April, slowly but surely, not even slowly, just surely, moving towards its end and coming into May where things are going to pop off. All right, get that Palo Santo going. So today's transmission is entitled The Heart of the Scorpion, and that is because the moon is going to cross fixed star Antares, which is now very close to the moon's south node. So we're going to talk about that today as well. Let me take some time here to, number one, thank my subscribers. Truly, you are the lifeblood of these channels. And a special thank you to my supporters on Subscribestar. I really appreciate your support. I have a goal, a monetary goal that's now up on Subscribestar in terms of accumulating equipment for increasing the production value of these videos. So if you go to subscribestar.com, my profile link is in the description box below, and you can go check it out. And it's only $3 a month in order to get all of the astrology content and soon to have exclusive material for my subscribers having to do with weekly horoscopes based on whole sign astrology. So if you're new here, welcome. It's great to have you here. Thank you for stopping by. And as always, for everyone who is watching, anytime you interact with the content of an independent content creator like myself, if you subscribe to the channel, if you hit that like button, if you share the content, if you comment on the content, it actually does support the dissemination of this content through these platforms, BitChute and YouTube exclusively. And Subscribestar as well. The more people that are supporting me on Subscribestar, the more that platform will also make suggestions and to people who are also looking for the same type of content. So thank you for being here, and I truly appreciate it. So let's get right into it. So like I said, the moon is going to cross her own south node today, and she's also going to cross fixed star Antares, which is the heart of the Scorpion. And we are really starting to move into some territory here. As if we haven't been here already for this last year. But now that the Pluto retrograde cycle has begun and Pluto has now stationed retrograde going back to the degree it was on March 2nd of 2020, we're going to be covering a lot of territory over the past year. And Pluto's not going to come out of its retrograde till October. It is not going to come out of its shadow period until January 2022. So a lot of what we're going to experience over the next few months throughout the rest of the spring and the summer, even moving up to August, we are going to be experiencing quite a tug, a very karmic tug in how we get to a position of success. The North Node in conjunction with Aldebaran is success through integrity. Archangel Michael, the military commander of the heavenly realm, however you want to characterize that archetypally, is really up to you and your personal relationship with your spirituality. The whole point here is that this tug, and this is the North Node, right, where we are headed for our soul's evolution, the direction we are being pulled in order to learn something about ourselves and our soul's journey, while the South Node now is coming into a conjunction with Antares, which is the heart of the Scorpion, and references and connected to Archangel Uriel, which is a character, an archetype that is not really mentioned hardly at all in the Bible. In fact, I don't think Uriel is mentioned once in the King James version. It's through other texts that came out later that this archangel was made a reference to. And this is the fire of God. This is that part of Pluto in some ways that just burns everything down. And Archangel Uriel, it gives us really connects to that heart of the Scorpion, because what is Scorpio but the truth? The deep down under the surface truth, not what is being told to us on the surface or even what our conscious minds can interface with in terms of truth, real truth, under the surface truth, getting into the depth of the power dynamics in relationships, getting to the depth of intimacy intimacy and the trust that is part of that, getting to the depth of what we are capable of when we come into communion with each other and cooperation. And so the deep truth is found in our subconscious, in the mysteries, in the shadow realm. And this is the 8th house, is the dark night of the soul, and death and rebirth are part of this. And the death of something inevitably makes room for the growth of something new. And so as Pluto is in this retrograde cycle now, we're really all individually and collectively, but we're really going to go back over some old territory in terms of these dynamics of what we have to let go of, what needs to be destroyed in order to transform. And the retrograde cycle, it's going to go way deeper than we have been going so far when it comes to everything that has happened since last March. So this is getting into those nooks and crannies that Pluto may have missed the first time around, that we missed the first time around because we were focused much more on what was happening outside of us. And we are all going into this phase now where we are going to be facing our own healing. We're going to be facing our own truth, and it is going to impact the way that we interface with the world outside of us and what we inevitably manifest. What do we track to us? And, Antares is in terms of a starseed location, Antares is a stargate. It's a dimensional portal to another galaxy, which is the Andromeda galaxy. All the other starseed locations that I read for are in this galaxy, except Andromeda. And it's a sister galaxy. We're actually on course to collide with Andromeda galaxy in about 4 billion years. And some people believe that at one time the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxy were one galactic entity. And through expansion of the universe and other astrophysical aspects, we separated and we're going to come back together. So there's a reason why the Andromedan starseeds and the Andromedan beings are so connected to what's happening here. Well, Antares is a gateway to that galaxy. Antares also, in terms of starseed traits, these beings, the Antarians, they don't often come into form very often. They live primarily in the higher dimensional aspects. Coming into physical form is not something that happens very often. So we don't see a lot of Antarian starseeds very much, or beings for that matter, because coming into physical form is kind of a challenge. And it's very maternal because it's Scorpio, right? This is a feminine signature. And sometimes, all the time when we're in Scorpio, there's a sting, right? There's a sting when we have to look at ourselves. There's a sting when we have to get into the underlying dynamics of relationships and what's really going on there. It's a lot easier to stay on the surface about things and not actually face the truth about who we are in relationships, what we're capable of creating, either positive or negative, right? Either of the light and of service, or of service to self and the darkness. Those are all aspects. And we're going to really start touching these places, right? We're going to get stung in some ways on a very emotional level. And as we go into the intuitive reading today, you're going to see it's right at the heart. But what we are flanked by is so much support and so much love and so much guidance. But they can't do the work for us. We each have to individually and collectively walk into this abyss by choice if we are going to really learn the truth. And this is a scary place. And if you don't, I would say if you're not making a conscious effort to do this, and you're bypassing, or you think that shadow work means something different than it does, which is looking at and investigating the aspects that you hide from yourself, that you hide from other people, you hide from society. This is really the shadow. It's unacknowledged and it's hidden. It is in the places that we are not consciously looking at. This is why things like meditation and certain types of especially QHHT, certain types of hypnosis therapy, prayer, yoga nidra is a great way and a very easy way to get in, to plant seeds into your subconscious. Without somebody else actually doing the seed planting for you. They're just guiding you into the subliminal space where you do this on your own. So I really appreciate that practice, actually. They call it the lazy man's yoga because you really just lie there and you go through a guided regression in some ways. But there's nobody guiding you into this space. You're guiding yourself. It's just the guide in that situation is getting your body and your mental state relaxed enough so that you can consciously access your subconscious. Anyway, these are all practices and modalities that, Reiki clearly is going to get into these spaces, and shamanic journeying is coming up really strong in terms of something that we can, because that's a guided practice with a shaman or shamanic practitioner that is trained and capable of going into these spaces consciously and guiding you there, which is the journey is where you see the truth and you get into those realms of your subconscious. So we're going to be getting poked at in some ways, and the heart of the scorpion, the scorpion stings, right? It fills us with poison if we are not careful. And I think that we are now, as I said yesterday, the earth wisdom can really hold us. And this is still true. And as the moon is in Sagittarius today, as we're going to see, we can just start looking at it now. Sagittarius and Taurus are in a natural quincunx to each other, right? They don't fit together. They create a pocket of opportunity and adjustment because it's like a square peg in a round hole. So Taurus, right? Natural rhythm, material reality, the realm of Venus, the great mother, fertility. All of these aspects are what the Taurus archetype represents: determination, patience, right? Sometimes some stubbornness, and Venus is attracting to her. It is the medium that the seed grows in, and that's why it's fertility. That's why it's natural rhythm. This is a Pleiadian wheelhouse here, is especially into late Taurus. Soon we're going to have Venus in conjunction with the Pleiades, Mercury in conjunction with the Pleiades, and then eventually the Sun. Further into May, right before this eclipse cycle that's on the 26th of May. Oh my gosh. And then Mercury is going to go retrograde. Actually, so we'll talk about that more for the next lunar cycle. So these two, and then Sagittarius, it's the truth, right? The optimism, the big picture, the understanding, and alchemy. But you have to keep in mind that Sagittarius is an action-oriented energy. It's the element of fire. Now, granted, it's the coal fire, so it doesn't seem like things are happening, but it's that level of fire where you actually cook and you actually perform your alchemical practice, right? Because it's only when you're at the coal fire that things are hot enough to actually catalyze reactions. So as we look at the chart here, just keep this in mind as the moon is going to be moving through Sagittarius today, is going to be quincunxing all of this energy. And one thing I will say is tomorrow tomorrow we're going to get conjunction with the Sun and Uranus. Okay, there's going to be some big wake-up calls here, and maybe some unexpected surprises, hopefully pleasant surprises. When we look at the intuitive message today, there's a strong likelihood that there's going to be a major awakening moment in terms of our ability to cultivate our own medium of growth and our participation in this process. And so if we are doing the work, I feel like a broken record because this is really what it is. If we are doing the inner work, like really doing the inner work, and allowing this process to unfold naturally, which is going against where, the moon in Sagittarius is, that's way more about the collective value system that we're all operating under and the understanding that alchemy actually is, because you're bringing these two opposite forces together. The quincunx here with the sun, with Uranus, with Venus, with Mercury, all in Taurus today, we're going to have a lot of opportunity to adjust ourselves emotionally in regards to all of this other energy that is way more substantiated, way more embedded in the soil of our growth, way more focused on the fertility that will allow our consciousness to grow down the line, right? Especially when we come into Gemini season and all of this, the Sun and Mercury and Venus all move into Gemini and meet the North Node, right? So, and Gemini is that sprout coming out of the soil, right? The sprout coming out of the soil and reaching for the sun. The first emergence of a conscious perspective that there is I and then there is other. And it's when you come into that awareness in Gemini that you realize that there is duality, and that there is you and then there is not you. And up until that point, it's really, you're still working with, especially in Taurus, you're really just like like I said, embedded in the soil, embedded in the medium, trusting the natural processes that are unfolding as you are in the soil of your growth. And then things are going to start moving once we move into Gemini. And this is where the eclipse season is going to take off. So in the meantime, we are really getting, I would say, the heart of the Scorpion today. Specifically, earlier today, let's look at earlier today, when the moon was in this direct quincunx with the sun, because that's actually in conjunction with Antares. So the sun is at this position in Taurus where, everything else has been at this point, Uranus and Venus and Mercury, and it's about the compassionate linking of all humanity, right? It's the Red Cross nurse that is offering care and love and light in a situation where people are feeling deprived, where people are in the darkness. And it's true altruism, right? And so the sun is here today, really, giving us this opportunity to express ourselves through this concept. Whereas the moon meeting Antares is at this point it makes it really difficult to be truly altruistic when you have to get to the heart of the matter and see the truth of some things, and they are dark and you don't like it, or you don't like what you feel about yourself or what you have engaged in. I mean, we all have to deal with this on some level in our lives. It's part of the work that we're here to do, but collectively. And as the moon is what structures our consciousness in this moment, we're going to have to adjust ourselves, because we can't just give up this opportunity here with the sun to express ourselves as truly altruistic and to see everything linked together. I mean, again, this is the Pleiadian wheelhouse. Of course, it's not till later Taurus that the Pleiadian aspect is really activated, but at the same time, we can learn something from this situation and bring it to our awareness, because when the sun comes and meets Uranus tomorrow, this is where the wake-up call comes. And, there's going to be a strong urge to break out of what we have been, what has contained us. We want to, engage in some humanitarian aspect with Uranus, of course, being the ruler of Aquarius. But it's really going to come within the context of our own material reality and what it is we value about our life, and what we can do to cultivate the fertility of what we want to grow. And we're going to have some wake-up calls. But in the meantime, like I said, this moon, what structures our consciousness, is really leading us to, adjust ourselves. Like I said, there's going to be an opportunity and a pocket to adjust ourselves, because Antares wants success through obsession, right? The heart of the Scorpion can be very obsessive. And as we're talking about the South Node as well, this is where we've come from, not where we are headed. And so it's very tempting to get into that fiery, scorpionic place and just burn it all down, especially if we are getting, we're feeling the feels of it and we don't like it. And so this adjustment, especially too with Uranus, the same thing. This is an opportunity to adjust ourselves with this quincunx today. So what else is happening? Well, let's see. Black Moon Lilith is also going to be meeting, as you can see here, hold on, make sure that this is, okay. As you can see here, is also going to be in a conjunction with the sun, also going to be in a conjunction with Uranus today as well, or tomorrow. It's very close. In Black Moon Lilith, there's the dark feminine. That is that part of ourselves that is so connected to the earth that self-preservation is an automatic response. It is something that we don't even consciously acknowledge. I mean, even the moon, even if it structures our consciousness in an emotional way, an intuitive way, and it's still under the surface in our subconscious, Black Moon Lilith is even deeper than that. It's the limbic system and the reptilian brain that activates without any conscious intention there. And so there's a lot of power here with Lilith, and there's a lot of potential to act on that self-preservation in a way that is really not going to serve us. We have to be aware and conscious and be plugged into the planet herself if we really want to utilize the power that Lilith represents, that dark feminine, because she is so directly connected to Gaia and the planet and nature and that fertility that she will act out if it comes down to it. And so meeting the sun today, meeting Uranus today, we are going to, again, kind of touch these areas of altruism and cultivation of our own fertility and growth and medium of growth. And it's going to be, we have a choice here. We can either identify the power of our deep feminine potential to hold this, or we can allow ourselves to act out of self-preservation unconsciously when we meet these representations. The sun, which is the blossoming of our individuality, right? It rules Leo. And then Uranus, which is that, that awakening, that quick transformation, that radical shift, and unexpected change that usually triggers your third eye to open, right? If Leo and the sun is the Kundalini activation moving up through the spine, Uranus and Aquarius is the vessel in which it can actualize and activate, which is through your third eye. The collective third eye is Uranus. So there's a lot of potential today to dig in and get very deep and see the power of what we're going to learn, even if it's really uncomfortable, because there's so much potential here to awaken and to have this really drastic shift in perspective when the sun and Uranus meet tomorrow, when it comes to our power to be responsible for the garden that we find ourselves in, or the garden of our own consciousness. And to quote Fred Rogers, the garden of our mind. So that's also happening today. And as the moon moves through Sagittarius today, I mean, we're going to be really feeling pretty sure of ourselves in some ways. And then when we meet Antares, I mean, this is where we want to just like jab in, or at the same time be stung by the scorpion. It just kind of depends on where we find ourselves. So one of the aspects that's actually going to work in our favor today, which kind of connects to Uriel in some ways, is that the moon right here is going to be in a sextile with Saturn in Aquarius. Now, we talked about yesterday how Saturn moved to a new degree. The next degree. This is the train entering the tunnel, right? It's using the human capacity of willpower and mental skill and physical self-discipline to actually bypass what would be a natural evolutionary process, right? Cutting the train tunnel through the mountain and then the train going through. So Saturn is giving us all of the is really formalizing this, is crystallizing this, is making it our responsibility, and it's something we can't get away from. And so this sextile with the moon at this degree here is if we can invest ourselves in this ability to really dig down into the deeper mysteries of humanity and spiritual ancestry, and get into more of the Akash and get on, Edgar Cayce actually talked about how the Akashic records were buried under the Sphinx. So you can take that literally if you want, but you can also take it as a metaphor, which is whatever, the Sphinx, what it represents, guards and holds the mysteries of all the potential of creation for Earth, especially the Akashic records for Earth, and our galactic position here. But also too, that if we are willing to, and this came up yesterday, right? In the Akashic Library as one of our guidance cards, our support, we have to be willing to go down deeper into who we are. And this moon is going to support this process. And if we can really see this for what it is and be willing to do the work on ourselves, rather than becoming obsessed by some sort of success. And that is the dark side of Scorpio, where you engage in activity or types of relationships that are really just about power. If we're with Sagittarius, if we're able to go into and underneath and really look at the power of our spiritual ancestry and where we've come from, we can apply that and invest that energy into this very karmic responsibility of Saturn, and very paternal, like this is what it's going to be. We are going to evolve, and we're going to evolve in this way. And when when the Sun and Uranus meet tomorrow, like I said, that is going to be a wake-up call. And for some people, it's going to be very pleasant. And some people, it's going to be so shattering that they're going to be like, whoa, I have to completely reorient my entire way of looking at things. This moment here, if we do this and get under the surface, if we can get down into the deeper aspects of who we are as humanity, each on an individual level with the moon, like I said, we can invest this energy in a sextile, right, to Saturn in Aquarius. So that's one aspect today. Now, again, this Sagittarian moon is not, it's providing so much challenge right now. And it's not always like that. It really just depends on what else is happening at that time of the month that the moon comes into Sag. And right now it's just really challenging us. And like I said, all these quincunxes to the Taurus stellium is just giving us opportunities to adjust ourselves when it comes to what we think is the big picture here, or we, what collective value system that structures our consciousness. And maybe perhaps being willing to dig a little bit under that surface, or allow the sting of the scorpion to show us something perhaps that we hadn't seen before. So one thing I will say though, Pallas Athena, which we don't see on this chart, is in Pisces, and it's in this, the goddess of strategy. She's goddess of wisdom and strategy. And now she's in the second half of Pisces. She's moved on to the 16th degree of Pisces, which is finding inspiration in a quiet moment. And this continues to come up. And this is the best strategy right now. If we were going to follow Athena's strategy, right, in wisdom, in war, right? And we are in a spiritual war in some ways, within and outside of ourselves. This bifurcation is very real in a lot of ways. The strategy, if we were to listen to our strategist, Athena, the goddess Athena, she would be saying, in a quiet moment, an individual gains inspiration. And so again, it's going to be really difficult. There's a square between these two aspects with the moon, because then the moon is showing us that once it gets into that second half of Sagittarius, right? The first half is the abstraction, is being able to extract the purity of these alchemical aspects, right? Fire and water, for instance. And then the transference is the teaching, or the reading, or however you want to wrap your mind around the transference. But when that first happens, it's really easy for the psyche to just take what is being fed to it rather than going and doing the difficult work of getting your own sustenance. And so we're going to have this moment here today where, again, it's going to be really tempting for each of us individually to just take what we are told, take what we are fed. Our psyche just wants to get the easy meal as opposed to doing the work and employing the strategy of going into stillness and silence in order to really to get the sustenance for the soul that we really are seeking. But it's along the journey of Sagittarius. This is why it can be so amazing in this sign and also so detrimental, because this is about the power of our collective value system and the culture and the big picture that we learn from the Scorpio time. And so we're going to be challenged right there today as well. And then of course it's going to come into quincunxes with Venus. It's going to come into quincunx with Mercury, all in Taurus. And it's same thing, as we get through this Sagittarian energy in the moon and we get closer to the galactic center, we are going to just, again, other opportunities to adjust ourselves. Venus in her home sign of Taurus, she's all about the great mother. She is the great mother. And she's soon going to come out of her hidden realm here and be visible again in the night sky here soon. So she's been doing a lot of work under the surface too, conditioning the medium of our growth, like attracting to her all of the nutrients she needs for fertility, attracting to her all of the aspects that condition the soil. That's what Venus does. She's an attractor. She's a magnet. We pull towards us what we value through the Empress and through Venus. And so again, so much of today is really about getting into this space and trusting it and knowing that we are supported and guided and that we're going to be this process is happening now with Pluto retrograde, so we're going to be feeling it. And we have to trust this process that we've put into place with the new moon in Aries, which was the inner fulfillment that we all hold. We hold both aspects within us in order to create. And this cycle is still playing itself out with a Pluto retrograde right in the middle of it. So the other thing that's happening today is that there is a sextile between Mercury and Taurus and Neptune. And so again, we can invest this Neptunian energy that is dissolving and diffusing everything down into this space where we can actually totally give of ourselves, surrender some aspect of ourselves, perhaps our ego, perhaps our sense of what we thought was happening or a sense of who we thought we were, really let it all go and give of ourselves for something to be substantiated. This can be invested into a position where Mercury is. 23 degrees of Taurus is a jewelry store filled with valuable gems. And it's, the gems themselves came into form as a result of natural processes, right? Very Taurus. But the store is the certification of the worth of those gems, right? Somebody took the time to gather them, to polish them, to put them on display, and to have them in a socialized type of situation. And so it certifies in some way the acknowledgement and the time at the end of this cycle. It certifies the worth of something that was created naturally. And so Mercury here, being able to really wrap our minds around this, and again, this goes both ways. We can invest this energy into each other in this sextile, and we can really, Mercury and Neptune can be really confusing, but because they are so well aspected and it's a sextile, which requires us to act in some way. If we are able to really see the worth of everything that has been naturally cultivating and really wrap our minds around it, we can apply that to a situation that is really asking us to trust our ability to let it all go and to be a vessel to substantiate something. So that aspect is really positive today and can really set the stage, or at the very least support us in this process. And as we're going to see here in just a moment with the reading, there is a lot of support. But of course, the moon is going to come around and square Neptune and quincunx Mercury right after that. So, as we're accepting this new territory in some ways, getting very close to the galactic center, by the way, kind of like being an immigrant coming into a new country and being ready to let go of everything in order to come into a totally new form. Again, it's about accepting the collective values, whereas this is way more about the natural progression, and Neptune is it's not about humans' laws and values. It is about God's law and values when you get into Pisces. So, again, more challenges along that front, today. Wow. So, the heart of the Scorpion, my friends. Okay. So let's look here. Let's look at this reading. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm going to check in with the chat real quick, see how everyone's doing. All right. Make sure the stream is happening, and ba-dang, here we go. So today's reading, we have the Nine of Swords at the center. So, the cruelty, the bloody tips of the swords. Wow. If this, the heart of the Scorpion, and it's really going to be in our minds, and our mental state is going to be where we really suffer the most, because the Nine of Swords is really about, you can go round and round and round, but eventually you have to come to terms with what is. And you going into the depths of a subject means that there's going to be some things that cut and some things that draw blood. And just like a scorpion is going to sting, right? And Mars is the co-ruler of Scorpio, and Antares is actually the rival of Mars, right? And so you got Mars and Gemini as the ruler of the Nine of Swords. And then you have Antares, which is in Sagittarius, which is the opposite of Gemini. So there is, not only are we going into the depths of a subject and with all of its consequences, it's not going to feel very good. When Nine of Swords is reversed, it's already called cruelty when it's upright. So when it's reversed, we're really struggling to learn. And it's very, very painful. But as you'll see on either side here, we have the Empress on one side, the great mother, Venus, and then the Sun is the outcome as well. So for all of the cruelty and the pain and the sting that is going to be experienced today, there is such a beautiful outcome and an awakening. And like I said, Mars, Sun and Uranus coming together tomorrow in Taurus is going to be a wake-up call. And for some, like I said, some people, it's going to be a really pleasant surprise where something shifts in their perspective, and other people, it's going to be so disrupting and uprooting that they're going to have to recalibrate themselves. So let's look at this one piece at a time. Here's our Empress, Venus. There we go. So we can make these bigger if we wanted. The Empress, Venus, like I said, she's the great, attractor. She's a magnet. Venus is magnetic. She is the more approachable, divine feminine archetype, as opposed to the high priestess, which is the moon. And Lilith, of course, is completely not approachable, even though she has all of the power of being directly connected to Gaia and to the natural rhythms. But she is also just as easily able to lash out. So Venus and Taurus, fertility and growth. So the causal factor here is this Venus aspect, the Empress, right? She pulls towards her everything that she needs. She exudes beauty and harmony and love and growth and maternity. All of these aspects are what are flanking us right now. So we have Venus and Taurus coming into the moment, the great mother. She is pure feeling. She's sensitivity. Now, this is also going to be why the sting is so stinging, is because Venus is sensitivity. It's all about how we feel in our senses, our physical senses. And for as much as she is loving and merciful and beautiful, she also causes change. She pulls towards her what she needs. And the sensitivity is going to be heightened as a result of this. But she's also the mother. She's here to give us the support that a mother would. And sometimes as a parent or as a maternal figure, you want to protect and enclose your child or whoever you're responsible for. And as a child is learning and growing, as a soul is learning and growing, you can provide the fertility, you can provide the means of growth, the sensitivity, the love, all of that stuff, but that's not going to keep you from having to experience and feel the sense, be sensitive to the sting of the Scorpio, which is another aspect of the feminine archetype, because Scorpio is water, right? It is the stinging of the scorpion. Okay, so we have the Empress as our causal factor. The Nine of Swords is reversed. We already just talked about this. This is the center, the heart of the matter today. And that is, in being reversed, like I said, it's already cruel. And so this card does represent a culminating point mentally and analytically, because you have to go into the depths of a subject to really understand it, and you have to accept every consequence that comes out of it and face up to the facts. I mean, it's cruel. You can see the blood dripping off of every single sword because it hurts. It hurts to get stung, and it hurts to have to face the truth about a situation. And when it's reversed, there's a couple ways to look at it. One is that we're resisting it, and so it's just way more painful than it needs to be. It also does suggest that it's going to be a lot of inner work as well. But with everything else kind of upright, other than what's at the root energetically here, which I'll go into in a minute, it does seem, though, that there's going to be some resistance. There's going to be it's going to be very difficult to accept the sting, and it will potentially, if you are not aware of it, you will potentially allow that South Node, that Antarian aspect, to inform how you respond. And this is where Black Moon Lilith is going to come into effect too, because like I said, she's in a conjunction with the Taurus energy. And so she can also really root and ground us into the natural world and the natural progression and the cycles and rhythms of nature, as opposed to trying to create something, right? Which is what Sagittarius is really doing, is creating something substantial, which is why Capricorn is the next thing. You're creating substantial institutions. You're creating physical material structures out of a collective belief system in Sagittarius, where all of this other energy is much more about the fertility of our own personal consciousness and the growth of it. So anyway, heart of the matter is this cruelty, this Mars and Gemini energy, this really, and it's going to be pain, despair. It's going to be really hard to accept what is at the heart of us today as we go through this day. Now, when we look at where we're at energetically in terms of a rooting, the Six of Keys, the increscent moon, is basically the galactic center in some ways. A sculptor at work is the Sabian symbol for the galactic center, which is 27 degrees Sagittarius. So we also know that the moon is going to cross the galactic center. Now, when it's reversed, as we see in the reading, this is a time of contraction. Instead of putting our artistic vision into form, Sagittarius to Capricorn, right? That galactic center, rather than doing that, this energy, when it's reversed, is suggesting a contraction period where there's a time of decrease. The moon is waning, and the moon is waning. We've already crossed now into our waning gibbous phase after the full moon. So the moon is losing its light. And so we are kind of being asked to conserve our creative energy and putting stuff into form, right? Making that Sagittarius into Capricorn transition, which is going to be difficult as the moon moves from Sagittarius into Capricorn over the weekend. So, but energetically, if we can root into this place where it's really about conserving our energy of creation right now, conserving it, pulling it in, being mindful of our resources, not expending them in a way that's not actually getting us anywhere, and pulling in and being patient, right? Patient. Taurus is patient, right? Because Taurus knows exactly how natural cycles unfold. And so you can't force the plant to grow. Well, you can. But outside, planted in the ground with the sun, you follow the natural cycle. And this is saying that energetically, we can root here into this phase of contraction and just being patient and letting the waning period do what it's naturally meant to do, which is hard for people. They want things to happen. They want things to be in form. They want to put their vision into form right now. And this is not where if we want this sun effect, right? If we want this outcome to be this beautiful, unconditional devotion and love that the sun represents, right? Aiming at life, living for generous, unconditioned principles, we do need to take this time to pull in and contract so that we can really see things for what they are, because it's painful, right? And when we have to change our perspective or face up to things that are painful, we may not, if we keep trying to sculpt something, we're going to get what we've sculpted. And perhaps that's not what we actually want when we are being, there's that burning of Antares in our subconscious that wants us to burn everything down and sting and be the rival of Mars, which is in Cancer right now, right? Mars is in Cancer. We talked about that. There's a lot of protective mechanisms here. So, but here we go. Now, this is interesting. The Seven of Roses on top now is upright, where just yesterday it was reversed. So even this concept of an emotional journey, and this is where the shamanic journeying comes in really strongly for me. Even just in this short amount of time, we have gone through from this waiting period emotionally to understanding that we're going to be going through this emotional healing process. Now it's here and we see it, and it's on the top of our awareness. And we are moving in a new direction emotionally as a result of these aspects. We are going to leave something behind. We're going to see that we're going to have to leave something behind. And it's not time for staying in a safe harbor. Cruelty definitely forces you to have to face up that it's time to leave, or it's time to move on emotionally, or it's time to move in a new direction emotionally. Because the roses are the heart, right? The emotions, the spirit. So we know that it's time to go on a journey emotionally, and it's in the top of our awareness. And it is really, as we move up through this process, the vertical axis of our power, if we are then contracting our creative energy to put something into form right now and pulling back and conserving, and then we realize that at the heart here is this really stinging awareness that we have to come to no matter what. And then we realize we have to make an emotional shift. We have to journey on to a different we have to journey on over the water, right? We have to go in a new direction emotionally. And there is some incredible support for this if we follow it, because this is where we get to the sun. The sun is never a bad card, especially when you have a lot of water and earth involved in the reading as well. And all of this Taurus energy evidenced by here, the Empress with Venus in Taurus. She is the Taurus archetype. And so with all the stellium in Taurus, she's really bringing this fertility and some support and growth potential into this moment. And then we have this awakening, right? The sun meeting Uranus tomorrow, this really drastic awakening, but also something that's going to open us up, and it's going to be a drastic change. So, but we have to be willing to go on this emotional journey. So what is the guidance here to help us along this process? Wow, I would say number one, the One of Keys, the architect, when it's reversed, again, plans have changed. Something has fallen through. Just like this, we want to keep sculpting away, but something has changed. And even at the very beginning of this project, which the One of Keys really represents, the very beginning, something has changed, something has fallen through. Maybe we are losing confidence in ourselves and our ability to build something. And it's time to consider a new direction. Oh, the Seven of Roses, the journey. It's time to consider a new direction, new actions, maybe a new plan entirely, right? A new plan entirely. And how are we going to know what that is unless we take some time out of our life and go into solitude? Now, solitude is not being alone. And I'm going to explain the difference here, because you're never really alone. None of us are ever really alone, because we always have our higher self and whatever our guidance team is, and we're always connected to source. Always. We're never alone. We feel separated, and we did separate, which was to experience materiality and to experience separation so we can value unification, right? And this is not an easy process for us right now, because the North Node is in Gemini, which is about separation, and learning to be separate, but also identify that we came from a unified place to begin with, and this is part of the process. Anyway, the snow leopard, we're never really alone, but going into solitude is a conscious choice. And it's there to get closer to the natural rhythms, to unplug from all of the, and remember I talked about it's going to be really easy for the psyche to take the easy meal of what it's being fed today, as opposed to following the strategy of the goddess Athena, who's saying it is in the quiet of the solitude that we're going to find our inspiration. So we know on some level today that, there's going to be some plans going to fall through. We're going to have to conserve our energy and pull back from what we think we're creating. And if we really want to, change our plans, right, down to the very basic level of the architect, we're going to need to take some time. We're going to need to take some time in solitude. This is why, again, unplugging from all the social media, unplugging from the news, unplugging from all of the chatter, right? This is why meditation, going out into nature, and being, we just talked about this yesterday, getting your feet on the ground, touching actual natural structures, rocks and trees and things, working with plants. All of this stuff, is about going into this space, and it's going to be really important that we take this today. And when it comes to the journey, so the humpback whale, it says music is essential to your healing. So we already have this, we're going on this journey, right? And the journey is above, we're gliding across the medium of, everything, right? The Piscean energy and Neptune and Pisces, right? We're going to be moving to a new location emotionally by crossing the ocean, right? Going on the journey. The humpback whale, and it's talking about how music is essential to healing and well-being. And this is really about breath work and shamanic work and sound healing. And if you go to the shaman and you have an issue that needs to be healed, they're going to ask you, when did you stop singing, right? When did you stop allowing vibration to be expressed through you? And the humpback whale, and all whales and dolphins too, specifically, but the whales, they communicate with each other through sound in the ocean. So this is really suggesting here that whatever the medium or the modality is for you, the breath work, the sound healing, it's very shamanic. This is important, and this is why the journey can be a shamanic journey, and the chanting and the singing changes the vibration in you and around you. Those modalities and those practices are very Syrian, right? The Syrian starseeds are the shamans and the mystics and the magicians. That's what they do. They create from their sacral chakra up through the throat and transmit, right? The singing, the chanting, even like movement, right? Swimming. But it's really about the music. When did you stop singing? And then along with that, add some. When it's reversed, we may have lost sight of our purpose and contact with our higher self. This is, again, why we're going to need to go into solitude, because part of the journey we have to take emotionally is there because we've lost sight of who we are and why we're here. And we are here for a reason. And it's important not to forget that, especially as you go on this journey. Whatever it is, if you take a shamanic journey, if you're taking a literal journey, emotional journey, our ability to make, I don't want to say make change, but to influence our own vibrational resonance inside and outside comes with singing, right? Singing. There are some cultures, these are very old indigenous cultures, and the Lemurian aspect, where they did not speak unless it was for sacred purpose, because speaking and making sound is a sacred practice because of the impact that singing and sound actually has. And we really take this for granted in our culture. So, and then with the Adsum, again, realize that we have guides, we have allies, we have a connection to our higher self. So don't give up on yourself, because your support system hasn't either. Your higher self is still completely accessible. You just have to access it. And through the music, through sound, right? Through breath work, sound healing, however you want to do it, this is where we really connect. But again, you have to go into this solitude space in order to really get in there. You can't do it by constantly feeding your mind. And this is part of the cruelty that goes along with the 9 of Swords, is that you reach a point. The next step is the 10, where it's ruin. Like, you reach a point where there's no amount of analysis from a mental perspective that's really going to do anything. And for as much as Sagittarius is a fire sign, it's still directly connected to our mind, because it's about the understanding of knowledge. And that is a process that's very masculine and connected to our mental state originally, right? With Gemini. And the knowledge that we accumulate. Sagittarius is about understanding it. And I think that we are going to potentially realize that maybe we didn't understand things the way that we thought we did. And the heart of the Scorpion is going to make that very clear to us. And what we do with that is going to make a lot of difference. And so perhaps taking the time to do this work today, to do the breath work, to do the sound healing, to go on the shamanic journey, to do the yoga nidra, any of these things, to get in touch with our guidance system and our higher self and not forget it, because we're going to need it as things get more intense and we are not able to bypass ourselves as we move through. And now that we're in this Pluto retrograde cycle, it's going to be all about what has happened over the last year, which has been the most impactful year probably of most, if not everybody's life. So, my friends, that is the transmission for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. I would like to let you know that I'm on Facebook and Telegram. That is in the description box below. If you are interested in a reading, an astrological reading, a starseed reading, you want shamanic energy work or Reiki to support you in your process, you can book through catalystenergies.net. Just go to the services tab and send a request, and we'll get that started for you. And yeah, I just appreciate every single one of you. Tomorrow is Friday. I will be on for the daily, and then there will be a weekly astrology report available. And again, thank you to everybody who supports these channels. If you support me on Subscribestar, thank you so much. It's really appreciative, and I want to be able to raise the production value of this content so that it can be accessible and relatable to everybody. And so your support there really does help. So guys, have a great day. Take care of yourselves. I will see you tomorrow for the